Okay. Hi guys. I put out a tweet a few days ago asking you guys what you guys would like to see in the next video, and I think questions on laning, questions on switching lanes, questions on archetypes and stuff like that came up the most. So I decided to do this video. If your thought wasn't picked, um, most likely I'll like get around to it because I saw some really interesting stuff that people wanted to see, and I'll probably be talking about that later. But I did say I picked the one that would come up most often. So I think you guys liked it before when I typed it out, and this time I'm going to do the same thing. You guys can follow me here if it's good for you. That's good for you. While I just go over and talk about this, I have the Clash Royale screen up above me. I have most of the archetypes laid out right there. I just want to talk about like each of them and how you would think about approaching them as in terms of like lanes, in terms of pressure, stuff like that. I think that's probably the best way to go about this. I'm gonna talk about laning. I'm gonna talk about guidelines right here. We're gonna touch on guidelines later, and then toward the end, we're just gonna talk about priorities and things that you should be thinking about. Whether or not that you can switch lanes. If you can't, it's okay. If you can, like when should you? How should you? What you be looking for? Stuff like that. All right, so yeah, let's start with. I do say lanes that have units in them have inherent pressure. When I say units, it's kind of a typo. I can't really fix it right now, but I just mean cards. Like I know a unit is something that can walk and talk and think and whatever, and you would tell me that cannon isn't a unit, but I agree with you. I just meant a card in a lane. Like if there's a furnace in the lane, that's pressure. If there is a inferno in the lane, it's not really pressure. It's stalling, but it's still something that you have to play around. So I'm just saying, like, if we think about this game, it's just towers and lanes, right? That's all it is, just towers and lanes. If you put no units in there, but as soon as you play a unit in here, like you play archers back here, one goes this way, one goes this way, and now instantly you have this like really small dual pressure, and you know that a lot of people followed up with something like an ice golem to put even more pressure on the opponent, right? Simple, just like we're outlining what laning is, playing around it. So yeah, like every single one of these lanes are played around the pressure. Essentially, they're played around the cards that are played there. Knowing that if we are able to correctly identify where the pressure can be placed, like to use an example, like this tower is like I don't know, let's say halfway, right? Your tower is full. They defend it with a bowler here. They're playing to your pressure. That's as simple as can be. And you know if they're playing to your pressure there, then this lane is probably free. It helps us understand just basic stuff like that, so that we don't sidetrack ourselves. And by understanding this, it helps us to break down the opponent's defense. Uh, a lot of the times you're going to probably be switching lanes because your opponent's defense is too good, or your cards just don't really match up that well against theirs, so you have to find like another way around it. And that's what we mean by if you're able to correctly identify where the pressure can be, then you can play around that pressure where it's like most useful. So when I talk about guidelines, you guys can read this if you guys want. It's right here. I just like listed down my thoughts about like the current archetypes in the game. I may not have listed all of them. This was kind of hurried, but you guys should like get an idea. What I do want to say, what I do want to like preface this with is that these like guidelines, they can be learned with experience. Like I don't fully expect you guys to know every little intricacy about each and every archetype. Like that's what I don't want you guys to focus on. Don't focus on like, oh, if this happens then this has to happen, and I need to know like this really small minute detail of this matchup. Like you don't have to know that. I'm just showing you this because I want to help you understand. Like I give you this content right here. I give you this like my thoughts so that you guys can frame your own experiences and your own like gameplay and try to connect patterns for yourself. If there's something in there that you identify with, that you feel like when I play this tank matchup, and yeah, oh yeah, like Giant is a great tank to split lane pressure with, and I've been having a lot of success with it. Like why, right? And I tell you why here. So if that matches up, then it like affirms what you already know, and then you can maybe learn something else. All right, so let's start off with tanks. Let's open up my Clash Royale. I think Giant is a very interesting tank, and then we have like the Golem here as a foil to the Giant. So tanks in general, you want to be pushing down lanes where most pressure is. So if we take, I'm just gonna keep using this map because I think this map, it's just the map of the map for Clash Royale. So say this is the tank player, and this is like the Hog player. It's a very typical matchup. Hog players usually want to go for lanes that are open. They want to go for lanes that are least defended. So assuming that, let's say the Hog opened up with like a Hog push on this side, on this right side, and they got this tower down to, let's say, here. Most Hog players will go into this lane again. Tank players usually want to stay in the lanes that have the most pressure in them so that they can counteract that pressure with their big push. Obviously, if you're a Hog player, you're not going to be pushing into a huge push because you're just giving elixir into that could have been used on defense. Typically, then Hog players would just go on this way, but we're not on like cycle beatdown yet. We're going to talk about that soon. So if we're the tank player, tanks usually want to go into the lanes that have the most pressure in it to neutralize it, so to protect their towers. That's a guideline. Sometimes it doesn't have to be like that. Sometimes it does. The tank that switches the best, though, if we're talking about switching lanes, is most likely the Giant. I think probably only the Giant is able to do this. Let me see. There are other like real tanks. RG is sort of there. RG is more like Siege, but I just want to check really quick. yeah. So Giant's probably the only one that really like can switch lanes because it's cost 5 elixir, has a huge health pool, and will always you can most likely afford support troops with it. Tanks like Golem, the antithesis to Giant, it's 8 elixir, it's really slow, takes a lot, you can't really cycle with it, unlike Giant. It needs to be played different. If you try to switch lanes with Giant, that's typically a wrong move, a really bad move, because you're switching lanes into someone who can immediately react to you, and you're most likely not going to get anything for a huge investment. This also applies to Lava Hound, to the Giant Skeleton even. Giant Skeleton is a pseudo tank. EsoPa you can't do that with either. So Giant is very specific there. That's why you see when you play these matchups like Giant versus Lava Hound, you see the Giant being playing more like the beatdown deck rather than the huge I'm gonna push your face-in deck. Because it's so quick and you can just play with it that way. Let's go on to Cycle Beatdown. Cycle Beatdown usually refers to cards like Hog Rider. Cards that are very quick, can take a tower. Usually, as we said before, want to go into a lane with the least resistance. If you play Hog Rider and your opponent doesn't have a building, that's probably you want to keep just barreling down that lane, just out-cycling them. If things get iffy if they have buildings and stuff like that, but you can play around it. So what I said here is that Cycle Beatdown decks should push lanes that are most advantageous to them, unless it will put them in a position to lose a game. If you're playing Cycle Beatdown and you know that going continuously into one lane, even though it has the most damage on it, and we say here the tower is there, right? And you're playing Hog Rider. I just love this example because Hog Rider is such a good example of this kind of archetype, and a lot of people are playing it right now, so it's super relevant. If they keep pushing it to here, and they continuously see that a bowler is being played, an Inferno Tower is being played, their Hog Riders are also getting logged at the same time, this lane will probably lose you the game, and then you want to just start switching lanes, going into here. and just like outcycling them. Your deck is cheap. Your deck can afford that, and you probably won't lose the game since you're gonna be just defending and switching lanes over and over and over again. This is probably one of the. I think this is probably the archetype that does it the most often, and has the most success with it due to its speed and its ability to take people off guard. Let's see. So chip decks. Chip decks are pretty cool, pretty interesting. I actually have a replay I want to show you guys that kind of exemplifies this. We're gonna watch it on times 2, and I'm gonna try and just talk about it a little as much as possible. The game I played was we can talk about that later, but so chip decks, they're interesting because they typically have ways of going around defenses, aka minors. Chip decks are usually very spell reliant too. Things like spell cycle, the mere furnace that has been seen a lot. You have double fireball, you have double goblin barrel, poison, like lightning sometimes, not really lightning. So they're not too worried about opponents' defenses. So when a chip deck, when you're playing a chip deck, it makes sense that they don't want to be switching their towers. They don't want to be switching lanes. If they're switching lanes, it's in a really dire situation, or they just manage to also chip down a lane to almost equal to the lane that they've been attacking the entire time. But in general, chip decks want to prioritize a lane that's beneficial to them, and it's usually chosen in the early game. You know, like this has happened a lot. If someone gets a hand like this and they have, let's say, minor, zap, princess, mega minion, right? This is a regular minor control. They send out minor here. The person responds with Scar Me. You zap it. You get chip damage on this tower. Now his tower is like here. Then your eyes should probably be on this tower. It's pretty much as simple as it is. In the early game, though, you can still switch with this archetype. It's okay as long as it's early on, because the thing about chip decks is that they chip. They don't take towers like right away, like a tank deck, like a cycle deck. They don't have that potential. So their games are typically longer and more control-y. And if you keep switching, you're just not gonna have the time. You're not gonna have the time to win. So you got to keep that in mind. It's one of the bigger things with chip decks. Okay, so I think we're on Siege now. At the Expo here. Expo is a really good example of switching with the Siege archetype. So Siege is interesting. The thing about Siege is that Siege, if not reacted to perfectly, will usually give an advantage to the Siege user. What I mean by that is, if someone gets surprised with Expo, the opponent will probably over defend. What happens then is that the Expo user will be ahead and have the option to switch lanes, to keep pressure, and like all of the above, right? So if Expo cannot get through, we're going to talk about Mortar later. I mean, if you read it, you can see that I don't really think that Mortar has this problem, since it's cheaper and can be played around. But Expo is sort of like all in. It's like the Siege deck where you only need one good push and then you pretty much win the game. You Expo one time, get the tower down to like 700 sub, and then you just fireball them out. If Expo cannot get through because an opponent's defense is too good, then you have to force an overextension, and then you switch lanes. That's not like mutually exclusive either. Like you can switch lanes and then it forces an overextension. Either way, it has to be through an overextension that you switch lanes with Expo. You used to see this a lot when Expo was really meta, when people were playing RG versus Expo, when Expo was put into these really difficult matchups against like Giant Bull or Lightning. So you would see the really good Expo players switch and switch and switch over and over again, trying to find that advantage. And if they got it correctly because the opponent didn't react in time or they didn't react perfectly, then they could win the game. Uh, yeah, but in general, like mortar, if you want to talk about mortar is for elixir and will usually, if played correctly, generate its own like elixir advantages. Like you don't usually see mortar too behind because of because of like just how cheap it is and its impact on the game. So I don't, and it doesn't. It's not. It's not forced to all in every single time like with Expo. Expo is really scary. Border is like, and then it gets scary later on when the tower starts to get really low and you don't want to take any more mortar shots. Okay. Let's see. Oh, right. Oh my god, I completely forgot. So let's go back to this chip deck. I wanted to show you guys the replay of chip. I would show you guys a replay of all of this, but I don't have any replays of tanks because I haven't been playing it. Chip decks, sort of like I mean not chip decks. Cycle beatdown I have, but we don't really want to focus on it. Where is it? That's not it. That's not it. This is it. Against Lava Hound Balloon. Let's lower down the volume a little bit. Put this on ×2, and we're just gonna keep this in mind. Like, remember, chip decks usually pick a lane, they keep attacking it, they defend on the other side, and yeah, like you don't really see me switch too often. But what you're going to see from this Lava Hound player is that he keeps switching because he can't break through. And what we learned about tanks and switching is probably that Golem and Lava Hound switch is not very strong unless like it's set up well. It has to be set up really well, and I don't think he sets it up correctly because his Lava Hounds had almost no impact. But notwithstanding, I did have a good matchup here because this deck is Monitor Control with Inferno Tower against Lava Hound Balloon, so I had a good matchup. I'm not getting sidetracked. I'm defending. He has defenses, he has a tombstone, but this deck can go around it because miners just totally ignore defenses like that. Chip. So Lava Hound. I could have placed my archers better. Archers should have probably been more up, knowing that the balloon bomb would come down and kill the archers. So that was a mistake from me. So you see here, he's now switching lanes. He feels that he can't get through over here, so he goes over here. Now he's going to the tower that has like least health, which he should do, but Lava Hound is not a good way to do this. This would look a lot more frightening if it was like a giant, because it'd be cheaper. He would be able to also drop balloon with this push, because Golem is, Lava Hound is 7 is not, you can't really back it up as easily. So I feel no pressure here either. And this entire time I'm just looking at this one lane. You don't really see me switching. So I think we're playing to the lanes correctly. And just like that, we take the win. Alright. Alright. So I want to end this with going to these priorities. I don't think that there's like a really particular order. Let's see. Yeah, I don't think there's like a particular order, but there's just some things I want you guys to understand here. So now that like you kind of understand what laning kind of looks like, lane pressure, all of this kind of stuff, how should you be thinking about it? When can you do it? And like stuff like that. So inherently, a lot of switching is really based on your opponent's mistakes. If you're playing, like, if you want to switch lanes, typically you're going to be behind. Well, almost always you're behind because if you're ahead, you just want to stick to the same lane and keep doing what you're doing. Um, what this means is that if you're playing against someone who can react to your plays every single time, like I did to the Lava Hound player, you're probably going to lose. I didn't really make any mistakes outside of like the Archer small like micro mistake, but yeah, in the end, it comes down to being able to identify an opponent's mistake and being able to outplay them. That's essentially what switching lanes is. You're outplaying them. It's not consistent, and it's not unless you're way better than your opponent, or you're in general just better than your opponent. So you want to take it, understanding that if it doesn't work, it's if there really were no openings for you, then don't really be sad about that. Just try and look for the openings. That's how you would improve. Every single game when I'm inside, if I'm behind, I constantly look for ways to break through, or if I can like find an opening. If I find no openings, I lose. If I do, I can come back. So in my head, I usually keep a few of these questions in my head, right? And I think that you guys should do it too. In no particular order, like I said, ask yourself, is your opponent over-investing on defense, pre-placing buildings, units to prepare for your attack? If people are... If they understand that you're attacking into the left lane, this is seen all the time. You're playing giant, right? You're playing giant. They're playing like bowler graveyard defense, and this tower, like your tower, is pretty low, and you need to take a tower right now. And they're like already setting up. They're playing bowlers back here. They have a tombstone right here. They have a mega minion back here, and you're just like, oh shit, I can't break it. Then most likely you just have to go into this lane. Right, it's like a checklist. So that one's like checked. All right, he's preparing. Like I need to go around it. Is your opponent outside a cycle? Do they not have the correct cards to use for your play? Did they misplay and use a vital card that that isn't in a cycle? Elite Barbarians are a great example of this. So a card a lot of people rely on when you're playing against Elite Barbarians is Skarmy. A lot of people rely on Skarmy. Let's say you're playing some weird deck like Goblin Barrel Elite Barbs, right? You're playing Goblin Barrel Elite Barbs. You Goblin Barrel a tower, they react with Skarmy. Right? This tower is like, I don't know, let's say here. But this tower is like here. You know that you're not going to break through here, because there's already like defenses or something, or like your opponent is ready for it. So what would be the natural answer? Well, probably play maybe Ice Golem and Elite Barbs at the bridge here, and rush them. If you know that the Skarmy is in their hand and they rely on Skarmy, or they rely on something like Minion Horde, then you can play Ice Golem, Elite Barb, Zap. And then your Elite Barbs get through and you take the game, you take the tower. That's another checklist. So here there's two. This one is a little bit more advanced. This one takes a little bit more experience to understand, but what is the amount of time it'll take for me to pull off the move? How long would it take for your opponent to neutralize the move? I usually call this the margin of error. What I mean by margin of error is, I think the best example in this meta right now, in order to explain it, would be the Graveyard. It's a very simple push that you can do with Graveyard that doesn't take very much elixir, but has the potential to take a tower. Ice Golem plus Graveyard. You can always have like archers inside or Mega Minion. That's like optional. I don't know. You would drop Ice Golem here, and then you would Graveyard over here. Say you're splitting lanes, you're switching lanes, right? So there's like a margin of error for your opponent like they have to respond within this amount of time. Let's say 3 to 4 seconds. If they don't respond within that time appropriately, then you know that your push is successful. You know that they messed up. Success. Push is successful, right? They messed up. But if you have done this push over and over again and you've seen it stopped, you know that the margin of error, like if they are able to defend it, it's because they react within 1 to 2 seconds. They know how to react to it, and this is like all dependent on like your opponent's cards, your opponent's cycle, where they're at, if they can like appropriately defend. So understanding margin of error is really important. Other examples would be something like, I don't know, let's say, let's see. Can I do this anymore? Okay. So a really big move would be like giant mega minion here, right? 8 elixir, go straight to the tower. What's the margin of error here? If the giant makes it to here, to the middle of the map, to the middle of the tower, right? Then you know that this giant is going to reach the tower. Most likely, it's going to reach the tower because they weren't able to pull the giant, or they didn't react to the giant quick enough, or they didn't have the responses there. So you know that the margin of error for here is such and such seconds. Such and such seconds. So figuring out your margin of error for your decks will help you understand whether or not your counterattack will work. And lastly, do I have enough time? Do I have enough time? If the time limit on the clock says 30 seconds, let's say, no, not even 30 seconds. A lot of people would do this within like 15 seconds. No, screw it. Let's just go with 30 seconds. I don't know. 30 seconds seems more appropriate. So let's say that there's like 30 seconds left in the game. Ask yourself, like, do I have enough time? Can I counterattack? Would it be worth it to just keep bulldozing down this lane instead of switching over to this lane? If you know that you're probably not going to lose, like if the game is going to end in a draw, then most likely just go for the other lane. Go for the lane that has a higher percentage. Just ask yourself, like, do I have enough time in order to execute this move? If you don't, then don't even go for it. If you do, if you feel like there's a chance there, then try and go for it. It's all about experience, practice, knowing your limits. So like all of this comes together, and this is all about laning. Lanes are all built around pressure, and playing around the pressure is very important. All of these different decks handle pressure differently and kind of look at it differently. If you really want to, like, this skill will help you outplay your opponents, get around really tough situations and other decks. I don't really believe that there are super hard counters in this game. This is a card game, like there are obvious, counters to cards, but there are situations that can be played around, and understanding this will help you play around it like very, like much easier. Right? It's not all just like instant losses. It's not like you're ramming your head into a brick wall over and over and over again. Like, just walk around the brick wall. Easy. Okay, so I hope you guys learned something here. I hope it helped you. If you have anything else you want to see, comment below, like, subscribe, and I will try and get back to you guys later. Thank you guys so much, and have a good day.